going to welcome the next speaker, who is a good teacher and buddy to me. Duleesha has been going with the maker movement for many years. He was looking at things in a bird view and 10 years after. So I'm very happy that he can come back to Shenzhen and join us to share his insights of the past and the future. Welcome, Duleesha.
Thank you, Eric. It's really good to be back here in Shenzhen for many reasons. We are at a point in time where geopolitics are not where it needs to be. And part of being here is to see and learn from China, because there's a lot going on here that we don't know in the Western world, and to be able to tell the Western world about it as well. It's really good to hear everyone say that with all the geopolitics going on, particularly even about chips, that it hasn't bothered and hasn't gotten involved in making movement at all. So that's very good to hear that the makers continue to stay connected. Now, it seems odd for me from Deloitte to be speaking here on the maker movement, right? But this was something we did. We've been tracking for over 10 years. And why is because reason. I run a think tank called Center for the Edge. It's been about 15 years. And the reason we call it Center for the Edge is we believe that all disruptions emerge from an edge. The edge of geography, the edge of technology, the edge of, and this maker movement was one of those edges that we were really keen on. We felt that this could, and I think it still can, disrupt how we make, how we consume, how we go about live, play, and work. So that's why we're keen on this. So 10 years ago, we wrote a paper called A Movement in the Making, like showcasing everything that was going on here. We brought together a whole bunch of folks who could help influence it, make it bigger, bring it into the mainstream, bring it away from just being this niche thing on the side. We featured Seed Studios, Eric, Bunny, because we recognized even then that China and Shenzhen was an important part of this ecosystem. And we eventually got Maker Faire into the White House. And so it was really, we were this is the top of the hype cycle, right? We were really big on this. And here's some of the statistics and things we showed. We could show that the Maker Fairs that David just talked about went from 75 to 120,000 people. These maker businesses, Quirky and Etsy, were growing in size every year. Pebble, what you talked about, raised $10 million, right? It was a big first big crowdfunding back then. Oculus, all these things. Over 1,000 hacker spaces. So we thought this was really going to change the world. And we also mapped out the ecosystem of how this happened, right? Remember you talked about zero to maker. This is about the hobbies, learning for the first time. How do you learn how to make something? That's where Maker Faire is an opportunity to play. Then you get maker to maker, the community that pulls it together, so that you can go from being just a hobbyist to putting something on. And the one that we found most interesting here was make to market. How do you commercialize this? How do you make money from this? So I'm going to try to come back to that question. I don't know that I have an answer, but you have a lot more solutions today and a lot more options today than you had ever before. So we try to map all this out. We're saying, how could this evolve to disrupt everything from healthcare to manufacturing to education? And Maker Faire is a big part of this, and you could see that the maker movement reflected the diversity of the people in it. When you go to the Bay Area Maker Faire, you see stuff like this: Burning Man vehicles, lots about 0 to 1, learning how to do things. It's really doing it for the joy of things, doing it for the passion of things. When you come to Shenzhen, it's much more commercial. People like making things, they're really keen about it, but they also want to say, can I make this a business? I want to make this a business. And many have failed at the same time, right? So we found this diversity there. That diversity is good. We need that diversity because that keeps the engine going from learning to making to commercializing. But it didn't work out as planned. We all got it wrong. Tech Shop, which was one of the big anchors, one of the big maker spaces, big commercial places went bankrupt and shut down. Maker Faire that we heard about, they shut down and laid off all the employees in 2019. A lot of the maker spaces were struggling, going from for-profit to non-profit. It wasn't just one, many of them were doing that. And it turned out that there's a mismatch between the ambition and the economics of running these things. I don't know that we've solved for it yet. But some good examples of Raspberry Pi and Seed Studios and Adafruit who kind of managed to do both, right? They've survived, and we can learn from them. And then when these things happen too, with COVID, it's meant that we couldn't really meet to do anything. We couldn't gather together as we could before. And we have this geopolitical rift that's continuing between the US and China, which are the two biggest hotspots for making. Right? So how do we go, where do you go from there? But on the back of all this, technology kept evolving. And AI was always around, but generative AI, starting at ChatGPT, has brought us into a whole different era of how we can make, how we can connect to people, how we can code, how we can do all of that. So in the future, there was this question we asked you about, how does Raspberry Pi with AI? AI is going to be a big part of our life, right? So you got to make us how to use all these new technologies to do all of it. So that's a quick walk through the history. Let's try to look ahead. The framing I want to bring here is from Japan, and some of you might be familiar with it, and if you're not, you really should try this out. We do this with our team every single year, individually and as a team. It's Ikigai. It's finding your purpose. It's finding like what you're living for, what you get out for. And there's 4 circles here, right? What are you good at? You really want to understand what are you good at. You're good at coding, you're good at making. Like you want to know what are you good at. You also want to know what you love doing. These are the 2 internal things. You want, because you might be good at something. I might be good at doing Excel. I might not love doing that. I might be good at coding. I might not love doing that. You might be good at something. So you want to understand what you're good at and what you love. That's really important. That's your internal perspective. What I want to talk to you today, from a Deloitte perspective, in the largest professional service in the world, is what does the world need and what can you get paid for? Now, if you find the intersection of these 4 things, that's how you might have a successful business. That's how you might be able to sustain yourself internally and also sustain your business. So with this framing in mind, and we'll come back to this, we wrote a report recently in our Office of the Future talking about 5 worlds that are going to be dominant by 2030. These are things that we think are going to be dominant in the business world. They're going to be growing by 2030. I'm going to talk about 3 of them. The habitable world is all about sustainability. Right? We are moving to a world of sustainable abundance where we have to build tools, techniques, processes to make our world habitable. So we're going to talk about that and what makers can do around this. Mirror world is about immersive, about 3D, so all things VR, AR, all things where there's a digital person on the other side of you. That's the mirror world. That's the second one. The third one is inner world, yourself, your body. So it's about human health and how technology can help with human health. So there's a whole area, a huge amount we think that's going to, healthcare is going to go from sick care, where you're taking care of people, to home healthcare, where you can preventative care, where you can look after yourself. So inner world. War world, unfortunately, we're in the midst of many wars, and we're going to have more of that, but there's also digital wars that's going on. I'm not going to talk about that today. And off world is space, up there. It's a whole different domain, and it's becoming more and more accessible. This will be a really big deal by 2030. So these are the 5 worlds. And today I'm going to talk about habitable, inner world, and off world, and how makers can do something in there. Let's start with habitable world. This is about sustainability and climate. And the examples I give here are all around consumer-related examples. But I mean, just walking around the place today and talking to Eric and what Seed is doing, there's a lot of industrial places that makers can play with. I don't think anyone disagrees that we're at a point in time that we have to make some conscious choices to do things differently. And the amount of product and technology and processes we need to transition from the way we live today to where we need to live is massive. So to answer that question of, are the big guys going to be able to provide all of this? No. Makers will have an incredible role in providing things, niche products that work for your local communities. Makers will also be the ones who start new products like the Pebble watch, that open up a whole new field that the big guys don't know. So the makers will be the ones that may be introducing and testing new ideas around this world that you don't know about. So this space on habitable world, making a world habitable won't go away. So we featured one from Sea and what they're doing around smart water monitoring. Water is one of the resources that we think is that we can have forever and we won't, right? That's an absolutely important thing that should become much, much bigger. The second one is interesting. It's about food wastage. It seems like a niche thing, but a third of the world's food production goes to waste. So these little tags, and these are total IoT things, right? Little tags you can attach. You can tell it when it's going to expire, and it'll remind you. So you open the fridge or on your phone, it'll tell you got this many things that are going to expire. Right? So it's a very makery thing, and we pull this off either Kickstarter or Indiegogo or any other crowdfunding project. These are things that are getting funded. The third one is on microplastics. Microplastics are these tiny little plastics that you can't even see that gets into everything, that gets into the oceans and gets into our bodies. And this you attach to your washing machine, and it cleans out the microplastic. So just very simple example, but there's so many more. So there's a massive industry that if you were to look something up in terms of what the world needs and what you can get paid for, there'll be a lot you can do here in the habitable world. The next one is inner world. This is about health, right? And it's not about sick care. It's not about what you do when you get sick. It's about stop getting sick. And what you're seeing here is there's a big movement just away from the physical health to mental health as well, and emotional health. So some products we found here that Vufuli, it's a pillow. It's a giant pillow, but it helps you breathe. And breathing is one of those things that is really good for emotional regulation. And it's got funded. It's already funded heavily, and it's a unique product, right? Now it's one of those things that only a maker would come up with. But if it does well, maybe a big guy would commercialize it. And that's actually okay, right? That means more people get access to it. The second one is about neuromodulation. It sits on your chest, and it sends a slight electrical signal to your vagus nerve and helps with stress and anxiety. So there's so much. If you went into the scientific side of things, the scientists and the researchers might have some deep science on this. They don't know how to make something. That's why you guys come in. We can make something for a niche, and over time it could become bigger. It's hard to say. The last one is the AI pet, and it comes from Japan, of course, because Japan is the place where you get all this weird stuff coming out. It's incredible. It makes noises, it sleeps, it gives an emotional response to you. But that's like an AI pet. Will it pick up? I don't know. Right, but we need more of these things that are in the semi-commercial arena to drive change. So another big part here is the inner one. The third big one is all for space. Now, when we think about space, we think about SpaceX, we think about NASA, we think about sending things up to the moon, up into space. But one of the biggest things about space is satellites and Earth observation. What you can do today so cheaply with Earth observation is incredible. You can look at fields of, you can do tons of stuff with agriculture, you can do tons of stuff with climate change that you couldn't before. This is a DIY cube satellite that you can build and get up into space. Now it's more expensive than anything else, but there's a company selling this that any one of us could build a cube satellite, probably using a Raspberry Pi. Right? The one up there is a weather balloon that can go up way up in there and do a lot of things. It doesn't get into space, but it gets into low Earth orbit. And you can do a lot of stuff around that. If you could combine Earth observation with IoT devices on the ground, you could create a really, really powerful system. So space is going to be interesting to watch, and I bet you there'll be more and more makers doing stuff on this. So where will we go from here, right? And I want to come back here. I think this is the most critical thing that combines your inner, what drives you, and what the world needs, and what you can get paid for. If you get this right, and you might not, and you got to keep trying. But if you keep going back to this, I think this becomes your anchor and your kind of guiding principle for what you need to make next. So I'm hoping more and more people are paying attention to something like this, particularly addressing what the world needs. So I'm going to pause here and take any questions. Thank you.
Any questions? 有问题吗？
I just love this chart. I think it just summarized so good. For my team, quite often we are good at what we do. We absolutely love what we do. But quite often we don't know what the world needs. And we need people who, in the scenario which have world problem, to tell us what to do. And quite often we have this gap. And once people tell us what the world needs, we actually can do it. And this is the problem we're facing right now. We don't know where to know where is the need. And we need, that's why we need community. We need some sort of can group out there, people who can do things and have problems. And number three is how often after we know what there's a need, but we struggle to get the payment.
Yeah, so we played a role in this in the past as Deloitte being an orchestra, and we want to play a role in this going forward, where maybe what the world needs comes from the large industrials who want to develop something, but they don't have the innovation capability to be nimble, to be agile. So if we can bring the big guys to the table to say, these are the things we're working on, like the arena. Okay, we need to find a solution for how to clean ocean water better, how to get plastic. Like if they come up with the problems and define the needs and they're willing to pay for it, that could be a way to connect back to the maker movement and say, who can solve for this? That has worked and continues to work, but it's kind of subscale. It doesn't work very well. And it doesn't say what happens to you after you build that product. Who owns intellectual property? What does it become? Does it become then part of the bigger business, or does it become part of yours? So I'm looking to see how we can play a meaningful role going forward as Deloitte to connect what the world needs and what you can get paid for with the maker movement, who really can actually contribute towards making those things. So love to work with you and anyone else and see how we can make that happen. If no other questions, please stay in touch. And I'd love to. This is my first trip back in 5 years to Shenzhen. Eric and the team here have always shown me what's here. I want to have excuses to come back more. And yes, would love to help do more than making more and help the research and something. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Duleesha.